My fiancée said, "If you won't pay for the honeymoon I deserve, there won't be a wedding." I said, "Then there won't be." I thought that ended it. Instead, she called vendors pretending to be me, tried to keep the deposits, and showed up at my office in a white dress demanding our future back. Original post: I'm Mason, 34, and until 6 weeks ago I was engaged to Brooke, 31, in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work as a logistics manager for a regional construction supplier. Brooke was a marketing coordinator for a boutique fitness chain, and to be fair to her, she was good at selling a dream. That was true at work. It was even more true in our relationship. We had been together a little over 4 years, engaged for 8 months, living in my townhouse in South End for almost a year. From the outside, we looked solid. Adult jobs, joint Costco membership, a wedding spreadsheet, a bathroom shelf full of matching skincare products that cost more than my first car payment. The kind of couple people assumed had already picked baby names. What we had actually built was a relationship where I handled numbers and Brooke handled narratives. And Brooke loved a narrative, especially once the wedding planning started. At first, we were aligned. Small fall wedding in Asheville, about 70 guests, budget of roughly $24,000 total. We had $13,500 from my savings, $5,000 from hers, and both our families were pitching in a little for rehearsal dinner stuff and flowers. For the honeymoon, we agreed on a week in Maui the following spring. Nice resort, ocean view if we could swing it, total budget around $7,200 including flights. That was the plan. Then Brooke discovered honeymoon content, not travel, content. Overwater villas, floating breakfasts, flower baths, couples photos in white linen on a private deck somewhere in French Polynesia. The kind of reels where no one seems to work, sweat, age, or ask who paid for any of it. At first it was harmless. She'd send me videos during lunch and say things like, "Look at this water," or tell me that wouldn't be unforgettable. I'd laugh and say it would also be unaffordable. She'd pout for 10 seconds, then move on. Except she didn't move on. She just stopped arguing about it directly. Instead, she started saying things like, "People forget the wedding. They remember the honeymoon." Or honestly, if we're only doing this once, why would we do it small? Then, if we have to pull money from somewhere, nobody needs chair covers and welcome bags. I kept saying the same thing. I'm fine spending on the trip. I'm not going into debt for a vacation. That should have been a simple adult conversation. It was not. The beginning of the end came on a Thursday afternoon while I was at work reviewing freight costs for a job in Greensboro. My phone rang from an 808 number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but I picked up because half my job is answering weird calls from weird area codes. It was a travel agency in Honolulu. The woman on the line was polite and cheerful and asked if I wanted to keep the business class upgrade attached to my Bora Bora package, because a second payment of $58.42 had just failed. I thought she had the wrong Mason. I did not. By the end of that call, my stomach was cold. Brooke had worked with a destination specialist online. She had booked a 10-night honeymoon package to Bora Bora and Moorea for $16,940. That included upgraded flights out of Los Angeles, a private photo session, a romance dinner under the stars, spa treatments, and some kind of arrival flower service that cost $390 all by itself. She had already paid a $4,500 deposit on my American Express, which was stored on our shared travel app from when we booked flights to Chicago last year. She had also transferred $3,800 out of our joint wedding account to hold space. Hold space. I still hate that phrase. I called Brooke immediately. No answer. I texted, "Did you book a $16,000 honeymoon on my card?" She replied 11 minutes later, "Can we not do this over text? It was supposed to be a surprise." A surprise. I left work early and drove straight to the wine bar where she was meeting her maid of honor, Kelsey, to talk seating charts. Brooke was on the patio with a charcuterie board, 2 spritzes, and the expression of someone who thought she was about to smooth over a misunderstanding with charm. I sat down and asked her one question. Did you charge $4,500 on my card and move $3,800 from the wedding account without asking me?" She exhaled like I was being difficult in public. Then she said yes, but in the tone people use when they think the truth is actually helping them. She started talking fast. She had found a limited opening. It was refundable in stages. The Maui trip was fine, but Bora Bora was a once-in-a-lifetime honeymoon. She had done the math. If we trimmed the bar package, used the cash gifts to cover the rest, and maybe pushed our kitchen remodel a year, it was manageable. I told her no. Not maybe. Not let's revisit. No. She leaned back, crossed her arms, and looked at me like I was flunking a character test. Then came the line. "It's our honeymoon, Mason. If you won't pay for the honeymoon I deserve, there won't be a wedding." I did not raise my voice. I did not give a speech. I just looked at her and said, "Then there won't be." Kelsey stared at her drink. Brooke blinked like I had missed my cue. Then she laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because she genuinely thought I was bluffing. She said, "Stop. You're embarrassed, so you're performing. Sit down." I stood up, dropped $40 on the table for my untouched iced tea and whatever share of the appetizer I was apparently funding, and left. By the time I got to my truck, she had called 7 times. By the time I got home, 19. Her texts came in waves. "Are you seriously doing this? You are overreacting. This is wedding stress, not a breakup. Answer me, Mason. Don't be cruel. You cannot end an engagement over a honeymoon destination. What actually ended the engagement was not the destination. It was the entitlement, the theft, the way she converted a boundary into an insult. That night I did 4 things. First, I froze the MX and disputed the Bora Bora deposit. The card company said it might be complicated because the card had been stored on a shared account, and Brooke had previously used it with my permission for smaller expenses. Still, they opened a case. Second, I transferred my remaining portion of the wedding fund into a new account after documenting every transaction. I left Brooke's $5,000 untouched in the original account and emailed her the ledger so there would be no fiction later. Third, I changed the keypad code on my townhouse and scheduled a locksmith for the backup key. That cost me $268 the next morning. Fourth, I started a folder on my desktop titled Wedding. Inside it I made subfolders: travel, venue, flowers, texts, bank, legal. Again, something in me already knew. She didn't come home that night. She stayed with Kelsey and sent one last email at 1:14 a.m. Subject line: "You will regret making a permanent decision over temporary stress." I did not answer. The next morning I began calling vendors. The venue deposit was $2,100 and only partially refundable. The florist kept $600. The photographer, surprisingly, refunded everything except a $250 booking fee because she said, and I quote, "Anybody willing to impersonate common sense before the wedding usually gets worse after it." That line turned out to be prophetic. Because Brooke did not react like someone who had been dumped. She reacted like someone whose stage had been dismantled while she was still on it. Update: 3 days after I ended the engagement, Brooke shifted strategies. The tears and late-night paragraphs stopped working, so she moved to pressure from the sides. First came Kelsey from an unknown number. "I know she messed up, but are you really throwing away 4 years over a honeymoon upgrade?" I replied once. "No, I'm ending it over unauthorized charges and an ultimatum. Please don't contact me again." Then came Brooke's mother, Donna, with the classic parent opener of, "I'm staying out of it, but..." Anyone who starts with that sentence is not, in fact, staying out of it. Donna said Brooke was humiliated, overwhelmed, and under bridal pressure. She said all women dream about their honeymoon and maybe I should have handled the conversation with more softness. I asked whether softness usually includes other people spending my money. That ended the call quickly. Then Brooke emailed me a PDF titled Revised Plan. Not apology, not explanation, revised plan. It was 11 pages long and included a new wedding budget, a payment calendar for the honeymoon balance, and a note on page 9 that literally said, "Once we're there, you'll thank me for thinking bigger." I almost admired the audacity. Almost. What I did instead was forward the PDF to myself, save it in the folder and continue canceling things. That afternoon, the travel agency called again. Same cheerful number, different tone. The agent said someone claiming to be Mason's assistant had emailed asking that all honeymoon communications be redirected to a new address, and that future refunds be sent to a Wells Fargo account ending in 4421. I do not have an assistant. I do not bank with Wells Fargo. The new email was masonandbrooktravel@gmail.com. Brooke had started impersonating a fictional employee in order to keep control of a trip I had explicitly rejected. I asked the agent to lock the file, note the dispute, and send me copies of everything. She did. 8 emails, 1 fake signature block, a polite lie about me being difficult to reach because of job site noise. That was the moment I stopped hoping this would stay private, because now she was not spiraling in my direction. She was forging paperwork in it. I hired an attorney the next morning. Family law was full, so I went with a civil attorney named Brent who handled contract disputes and restraining orders when needed. His retainer was $1,750, best money I spent all month. He drafted 2 letters, one to Brooke demanding she cease impersonating me, stop contacting vendors on my behalf, and preserve all communications. One to the travel agency formally disputing any authorization beyond the original Maui planning discussion. While Brent was doing that, Brooke moved from paperwork to performance. On Saturday afternoon, my doorbell camera picked her up sitting on my front step in a white sweatshirt that said bride in gold script, with the navy luggage set I had bought during a Black Friday sale stacked beside her like a tiny airport. She rang once, then twice, then she just stayed there. After 15 minutes, she started recording a video of herself crying. I watched it from my office upstairs without opening the door. Then she knocked again and said, "Mason, I know you're in there. We don't destroy a marriage before it starts because of one fight." One fight. At that point, the unauthorized card charge, the drained wedding account, the fake assistant email, and the wedding ultimatum had apparently all been rebranded as one fight. I called the neighborhood security patrol. Since it's a private townhouse community, they came fast. A guard named Caleb walked her and the luggage to the curb. She was furious, but she left. 20 minutes later, flowers arrived at my office. White orchids, probably $140 minimum. Card attached. For my future husband, stop punishing me for dreaming big. B. Dana, the receptionist on our floor, carried them into my office holding the card between 2 fingers like it had leaked on her. She asked, "Is this romantic or evidence?" I said evidence. She smiled and took a picture for me before we dumped them in the break room for whoever wanted free flowers from a failed engagement. By Monday, Brooke had posted a vague but obvious Instagram story about being abandoned by a man who feared beautiful things. That got enough traction from mutuals that my younger cousin texted asking if I had really called off a wedding because Brooke wanted a better beach. No. I called off a wedding because Brooke thought a better beach entitled her to my money, my signature, and my compliance. The first person from her side who spoke to me like a sane adult was her older brother Tyler. He called on Tuesday evening and said, "I'm not defending her. I just need to know whether she actually moved money without asking." I said yes. He was quiet for a second, then said, "Okay." That tracks more than I wanted it to. Apparently, Brooke had once booked a surprise girls' trip on a previous boyfriend's airline miles and then acted shocked when he got angry. Useful pattern. Terrible timing. Tyler also told me Donna was still telling people the wedding was on pause, and Brooke was calling vendors to say I needed a few days to cool off. I did not need a few days. I needed everything frozen, so Brent sent a second round of notices. The venue, the florist, the planner, the DJ, the travel agency. Anyone with my full name on a contract got written instruction that no modification, refund, reroute, or event continuation was authorized without direct phone verification and a copy of my driver's license. That was exhausting, but it worked, for about 48 hours. Then Brooke escalated again. Update 2.5 weeks after the breakup, Brooke discovered the one pressure point she thought would make me cave. My job. On a Wednesday morning, my HR manager asked if I had 10 minutes to talk. That sentence is never good. I went into her office and found a printed email on her desk from a Gmail account called Concern for Bride and Groom at something. The sender claimed I had financially abused my fiancée by canceling our honeymoon to punish her, withholding access to joint funds, and creating an unsafe emotional environment that might affect my leadership judgment at work. I wish I were kidding. The email included screenshots of our old venue website, a cropped image of my engagement announcement, and a paragraph saying I had become volatile since wedding planning began. Volatile? My HR manager, Lisa, asked if there was context she should know. I handed her my folder. Texts, bank transfers, vendor emails, attorney letters, doorbell screenshots, flower card, the fake assistant email, the partial refund log, everything. She read for maybe 6 minutes, looked up and said, "Okay. You're not the problem here." Then she asked if I wanted building security notified in case Brooke showed up. That question turned out to be annoyingly prophetic, because she did. 2 days later, at 9:18 a.m., Brooke walked into our office lobby in a short white dress and nude heels, carrying a leather portfolio and the passport holder she had bought for our honeymoon. The front desk called upstairs before she made it past security. Lisa said, "Is your ex in white at reception?" That was a sentence I never expected to hear in my life. I went down with security, mostly because I did not want anyone improvising around a scene. Brooke smiled when she saw me, not happy, victorious, like she had finally forced a face-to-face encounter. She said, "Good, because you've been acting impossible. We need to finish our honeymoon paperwork before you do something stupid with the refunds." I said, "Brooke, leave." She held out the passport holder and said, "I already forgave you for humiliating me. Stop making this uglier." There is something uniquely unsettling about someone announcing forgiveness for a harm you did not commit. I said it again, "Leave." Then she lowered her voice and said, "I am not walking away from $16,000 and my own wedding story because you're having a control issue." Security stepped in. She tried to angle around them and get to me. They escorted her out while she kept saying, "You don't get to steal my honeymoon." My honeymoon. Still that. Still possession. The lobby cameras caught all of it. Lisa saved the footage before lunch. That afternoon, Brent filed for an emergency protective order. At the same time, the money side got worse. The card company completed its investigation and reversed $4,500 of the travel charge because Brooke had used a stored card beyond the scope of prior permission. Good, helpful, clean. What was not clean was the missing $3,800 from the wedding account. Brooke had already moved it into her personal checking account, then used part of it to pay the Bora Bora agency planning fee, a white dress for honeymoon dinners, and custom luggage tags with our initials. Since the account was joint, the bank called it a civil dispute. Translation, not fraud enough for them, personal enough to be my problem. So Brent moved toward civil recovery. Then Brooke, in what I can only describe as commitment to a terrible theme, sent me a Venmo request for $2240 labeled half of lost honeymoon value. I declined it and took a screenshot. A few days later, I went to dinner with Claire, a nurse I had met through my sister earlier in the summer. This was not some grand replacement romance. We had gone for coffee once after the breakup, because my sister insisted I needed to be in a room with somebody who had never used the phrase "hold space" while stealing from me. Claire was easy to talk to, funny without trying, smart, zero theatrics. We were at a quiet Italian place in Dilworth when Brooke appeared beside our table holding a printed copy of the Bora Bora itinerary in a clear plastic sleeve. I don't know how she found us. My guess is social media from my sister's story earlier that day. We had been careful but not careful enough. Claire looked up, then immediately looked at me, not panicked, just reading the situation. Brooke ignored her completely and said, "So this is why you're willing to waste our honeymoon." I said, "Brooke, leave now." She set the itinerary on the table between the olive oil and my water glass like it was a legal exhibit. 10 nights, Overwater Villa. Sunset dinner. You really threw that away for what, Pride? Claire said he asked you to leave. Brooke finally looked at her and smiled, this strange, polished smile women use when they want to insult another woman without raising their voice. She said, "Enjoy the leftovers." Then she reached for the itinerary, clipped my glass, and sent water across the table and into Claire's lap. The whole restaurant went silent in that awful way. Manager came over. I said one sentence, "She has an active filing against her. Please call police." Brooke left before they arrived, but the restaurant gave statements and pulled camera footage. Claire, who handled the whole thing with more grace than I deserved from a second date, just blotted her skirt with napkins and said, "Well, now I have a strong opinion about her." That was the night I stopped feeling guilty for escalating legally, because Brooke was not heartbroken. Brooke was furious that her chosen ending had been denied. Final update: the hearing was 12 days ago. Brooke arrived in a navy dress with soft makeup, flat shoes, and the expression of a woman auditioning for the role of exhausted bride. If you didn't know anything, you might have thought I had left her at the altar for no reason except being cold. Then Brent handed the judge a binder. Not a thick binder, actually. 2 binders. One for the protective order, one for the financial dispute. Texts, bank records, vendor emails, the fake assistant messages, office lobby footage, the flower card, the doorbell images with the bride's sweatshirt and luggage, the Venmo request, the restaurant incident report, the security statement, the HR email calling me volatile, even a screenshot of the PDF titled Revised Plan. Brooke's attorney tried to frame everything as pre-wedding stress. He said his client had made impulsive travel decisions in the emotional context of planning a major life event. He said the office appearance was an attempt at closure and financial clarity. He called the restaurant scene unfortunate but not threatening. Then the judge read Brooke's line from the travel email chain out loud. "Please redirect all refund activity to my Wells Fargo account while Mason is on sites and hard to reach." The judge looked over his glasses and said, "Why were you redirecting refunds to an account not in Mr. Mason's name?" Brooke said she believed the honeymoon belonged to both of us. The judge said, "That is not the same as believing you may impersonate him." That was the sentence of the day. Then he read her ultimatum from the texts. "If you won't pay for the honeymoon I deserve, there won't be a wedding." He looked at me and asked if I had responded. I said, "Yes, Your Honor." I said, "Then there won't be." He nodded once, like the rest of the story made more sense the moment that line entered the record. The protective order was granted for 1 year. No contact. No third-party contact. 500 feet from my residence, workplace, and vehicle. The civil piece was continued briefly, while the bank records were finalized. But Brooke agreed through counsel to repay $2,900 of the joint account money within 60 days, rather than keep litigating the rest. Between that repayment and the reversed card charge, I recovered most of what mattered. My out-of-pocket loss after vendor fees, legal costs, locksmith, and non-refundable deposits came to about $4,380. Expensive lesson, cheaper than a marriage like that. After the hearing, Donna approached me in the hallway. I expected defense, maybe blame. What I got was a tired woman who suddenly looked older than she had on the phone. She said I should have listened harder when you asked whether softness usually includes spending somebody else's money. I didn't say anything. Then she added, "For what it's worth, this is not the first time Brooke has confused wanting something with being owed it. That might have comforted me earlier." At that point, it mostly confirmed that I had exited on time. Work, on the other hand, got better fast. Lisa and our regional director handled everything cleanly. The office footage never circulated beyond who needed it. My performance review still happened on schedule, and last week I got promoted to senior operations manager with a raise that was more than the original Maui budget. Life has a sense of humor sometimes. As for Brooke, all I know is what leaks through mutuals, and even that is less every week. She lost her job at the fitness company not long after the hearing. From what Tyler said, it wasn't because of the breakup itself. It was because she had been taking wedding planning calls at work, using company time to manage personal disputes, and then disappeared for half a day the morning she showed up at my office in white. Apparently employers also dislike theatrics in reception areas. Claire and I kept seeing each other, slowly. Normally. No declarations, no destiny speeches. Just dinners, bad mini-golf, and the very unfamiliar experience of being with someone who thinks a vacation should feel restful instead of strategic. 3 weekends ago, we took a quiet trip to Charleston. Not a honeymoon, just a trip. We ate shrimp and grits, walked by the water, and did not once discuss content, upgrades, or whether any stranger online would envy us enough. That was enough. Maybe more than enough. The strangest part of all this is how many people kept trying to minimize the issue by saying it was just about a honeymoon. It was never just about a honeymoon. It was about what Brooke believed a wedding entitled her to. My money, my agreement, my signature, my silence, my future. And the second I refused to underwrite the fantasy, she treated my no like a logistical problem instead of an answer. That is the real lesson. The honeymoon was only the costume. The actual problem was entitlement wearing a veil. A person who loves you does not need to force romance through debt, impersonation, public scenes, and workplace pressure. A honeymoon is supposed to celebrate a marriage, not expose why one should never happen. And anybody who says, if you won't buy the future I pictured, there won't be a wedding, has already told you exactly how conditional their love is. So I believed her. Then there wasn't. If you've ever faced something similar, or if you think I handled it right or would have done it differently, comment below. Subscribe, like, and share so more people hear stories like this and tell me your opinion.